Welcome to African News Network, where the pulse of Africa beats strong. Let the world see the vibrant stories that shape the continent. Stay informed, stay connected.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in and welcome back once again to African News Network, the only channel where we tell the truth and we tell it as it is, the only channel where we try to give the positive side of every news that is coming out of Africa. Thank you once again. And today I want us to look at a story which got to my desk and I decided to talk about it. But before we do get started, please help the channel grow because we are looking to grow exponentially. And I know that with the help of everyone who loves Africa, everybody who is wishing to see Africa free and liberated, an Africa where the youths can actually be sustainable in the activities, hit that subscribe button, smash the like. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get straight into the business. One of the worst thing that ever happened to Africa was coming in contact with the Europeans. And centuries ago, man, Europeans explorer decided to explore, and then they visited, they landed on the coast everywhere around Africa, and the Portuguese started this move, and then the Europeans, the Spanish, took over, and then other parts of Europe started getting involved. Now, they got involved for their own personal reasons, and one of those reasons was to divide and conquer, which they did perfectly well, and they kept Africa in bondage ever since from the first moment that they got in contact with Africa. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we know that after that whole situation happened, after the contact with the European, Africa has been struggling to be self-efficient, although it is a continent full of natural resources, which, if managed and handled properly, is definitely going to elevate the whole continent. Matter of fact, if all African countries today could manage their resources efficiently, there will be no need for Africans to be dying to try to cross over to Europe. Ironically, we leave our own natural resources and try to move to the land of those who actually destroyed us, divided and conquered us. Unfortunately for this, ladies and gentlemen, we will give all credit to the puppets that are put in place, the bad governance, the corrupt governance, politicians whose only focus is not their people. And there's no doubt that when the politician comes up and wants to actually do work for his people, they are immediately taken out with collusion and the help of fellow Africans. Now, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, there is a sad situation that got to my desk today. There is a very sad situation that got to the African News Network desk. And I want us to talk about Nigeria. Now, we cannot talk about Africa without talking about this great nation. Nigeria is that country in Africa that has the potential to be the hub, the central of power in the continent. Nigeria is that country that has the potential to move in such a way that every other African country would follow lead. Nigeria is that country in Africa that the moment that Nigeria is going to realize its true potential, and they stand up and they start moving in the direction of Pan-Africanism, in the direction of true African people, that continent there's going to be a seismic shift in the continent. Unfortunately, Nigeria, although bestowed with all of these characteristics I just talked about, they are one of the leading most corrupt countries in Africa. And some of you might be wondering, but why are we saying this? Why is this coming out of your mouth? Why is the son of Africa saying this? Ladies and gentlemen, let me just say this. On the African News Network, I created this channel to actually say it as it is. We are not sugarcoating. The goal is to help elevate our fellow Africans around the globe who will actually come through and watch this law. And this news, ladies and gentlemen, is that of the Nigerian Senate approving a bill to furnish 230 million US dollars to buy 1,477 street lights. Let me repeat that. The Nigerian Senate just signed into bill and they approved 230 million US dollars to buy 1,477 street lights. You might be wondering, wow, this is good. I beg your pardon, ladies and gentlemen. For 230 million US dollars to buy 1,477 street lights, that will put each street light at the value of 176,000 US dollars. Now, I don't know what kind of street light that is supposed to be. I don't know if the street light is going to shine for like 1,000 kilometers from where it is put. But let me just say this, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very poor sign of management of resources. This is a very corrupt sign, and a sign of embezzlement at play. Now, I said earlier that Nigeria is that country in Africa that once Nigeria stands up, a whole lot of things will change around Africa. There will be a seismic change. And I mean that with all honesty. Now think about this. Nigeria is a country that doesn't have electricity. But the Senate, a bunch of old corrupt kleptomaniacs whose lives are just formed to just embezzle the natural resources of these beautiful people. Think about it. A country that doesn't have electricity, the Senate is approving 230 million US dollars to buy 1,477 streetlights. What are you going to power these streetlights with? You don't have electricity. Well, there is electricity, but it is not stable. So technically speaking, there's no electricity, because everybody in Nigeria knows that if you build a property, you need to have a generator to actually supply electricity, because it is an on and off game. Now, let me just give you a few information of what $230 million has done around countries in Africa. The renewable energy project, they call it the Ituka Solar Power Station, Uganda, that provides 24 megawatts, ladies and gentlemen, and is currently under construction. The Uganda West Nile region. That costs just 19 million US dollars. The Garubanda Solar Power Station in Niger, neighboring Niger, the country, neighboring the AES country, man. They are building that solar power station for the bill is 70 million US dollars and is going to provide 50 megawatts. The Tiakadugu Dialokoro Solar Power Station in Mali, that is supposed to give 50 megawatts of electricity. That will go at the bill of 75 million US dollars. That is not even close to 330 million. And then there is the Kasangini Solar Power Station in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Approximately 52 million US dollars to provide 40 megawatts. I can go on, ladies and gentlemen. There is the Nyawamba Hydroelectricity Power Station in Uganda too. Cost 24 million US dollars to give 9.2 megawatts. There's also the Kigagati Hydroelectric Power Station in Uganda, 87 million, and it will give 15.57 megawatts of electricity. Now, I said all of this to say this, ladies and gentlemen. There are projects that African countries have concluded with prices lesser than this. Now, if the Nigerian Senate is approving 230 million US dollars to buy just 1,477 streetlights, this is a clear sign of corruption. This is a clear sign of depriving this beautiful country from actually reaching its full potential. I will end this vlog by saying this: it is time for Africa to stand up. We are having people like Captain Ibrahim Traore showing us that with the little resources, Africa can stand. Leave your comment and let me know exactly what you think, especially my Nigerian audience. Stay blessed, man. God help us.
Welcome to African News Network, where the pulse of Africa beats strong. Let the world see the vibrant stories that shape the continent. Stay informed, stay connected,